8%. Within that, intra-East African trade rose by 28%, from $15.1 billion to $19.3 billion. Yet, despite this growth, it still accounts for a fraction of our total trade. Clear evidence that while momentum is building, the full potential of our regional markets remain largely untapped. That gives us a better footing in the region and as part of a broader continental framework, including COMESA and most importantly and significantly, the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. The ACFTA, as it's called, is a historic opportunity to create a single market of over 1.5 billion people with the potential to increase intra-African trade by more than 80%, lift millions out of poverty, and expand opportunity for millions of young Africans whose talent and ambition must find expression in constraint but in growth, not in constraint but in growth, enterprise, and shared prosperity. The East African community must position itself as a strong pillar within this continental architecture, leveraging our integration to expand trade across Africa and beyond. We have seen this model succeed elsewhere. The European Union, for example, has demonstrated how regional integration can create scale, enhance competitiveness, and strengthen global influence. We can and must do the same in a way that reflects our realities, our priorities, and our aspirations as East Africans. Honorable members, a continent that remains divided by hesitation and mistrust cannot act with coherence and strength. It cannot coordinate effectively, and it cannot fully realize its potential. The reform of the African Union is not optional, it is an imperative. We must build an institution that is leaner, more focused, more effective, and decisively results-oriented. One that speaks with a single coherent voice on global issues, aligns its organs with priorities of its member states, and above all, translates these decisions into tangible outcomes. This is again not merely an administrative exercise. It is a strategic necessity. A stronger African Union is an engine of a stronger Africa, and reform is the bridge between aspiration and achievement. Without it, the promise of Agenda 2063 risks remaining unfulfilled. Central to this renewal is financial independence. For far too long, a significant share of the Union's program has depended on external financing, undermining ownership, constraining strategic autonomy, and limiting our capacity to act with speed and certainty. Africa must fund its own priorities, set its own agenda, and engage the world from a position of confidence and self-determination. Unity and ownership are not abstract ideals. They are the foundations of our collective strength. At the same time, the call for reform must extend beyond our continent to every architecture of global governance. Reform is no longer a matter of preference. It is a matter of justice. A system that marginalizes Africa cannot claim legitimacy. Let me repeat that. I have said, and I want to say this with clarity, a system that marginalizes Africa cannot claim legitimacy. And a global order that excludes a continent of 1.5 billion people is inherently incomplete. Nowhere is this more evident than in the United Nations Security Council. A council that excludes Africa cannot effectively secure Africa. And without Africa, there can no longer be global security. Representation, therefore, is not symbolic. It is essential to building a stable and credible international system. Equally urgent is the reform of the international financial architecture. Today's system reflects a different era and does not adequately respond to Africa's realities. The cost of capital remains disproportionately high. Access to long-term financing is constrained, and the pathway to development is unnecessarily burdened. If the cost of capital remains punitive, then the promise of development becomes performative, that you have to do something to get it. Reform must restore fairness to finance, expanding access to affordable capital for infrastructure, industrialization, and climate resilience, while ensuring that global institutions evolve to support rather than to hinder Africa's ambition. This, honorable members, is not an African grievance. It is a global contradiction. A system that sidelines Africa ultimately undermines the stability and prosperity of the world itself. That is why we will carry this message to every forum, to every summit, and to every table until reform is no longer debated but delivered. Honorable members, unity remains our greatest leverage. When Africa speaks with one voice, reform ceases to be a request and becomes an inevitability. Continental instruments such as the Africa Continental Free Trade Area are already demonstrating what is possible when we act together. We must now match that ambition with institutions and financial systems that enable progress rather than obstruct it. From strengthening regional and continental institutions to reshaping global finance and governance, the path forward is clear. We cannot build prosperity in isolation. We cannot secure progress alone. We cannot shape the future while divided. We must build it together, deliberately, systematically, and with unwavering resolve. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, as I bring this address to a close, allow me to reflect briefly on leadership. Leadership is above all a privilege that comes with responsibility. Honorable members, it demands that we honor our word, fulfill our promises, and deliver on the trust that our people have placed on us. The trust test of leadership is not the offices we hold, but the outcomes we deliver and the courage we show in delivering them. In Kenya today, we are making deliberate progress in expanding healthcare, strengthening education, and delivering housing at scale as part of a broader commitment to dignity and shared prosperity. These efforts have required courage, the courage to make difficult decisions in pursuit of long-term national gain. Because leadership is not about following the crowd, but about leading with conviction, even when the path is not easy. It is this same spirit that we must now lead beyond our borders, because the choices we make as nations will determine the strength we build as a region and the influence we command as a continent. The investments we are making in infrastructure, energy, agriculture are not projects for one country alone. They are part of a broader vision of shared strength one that connects our economies, aligns our interests, and advances our common future. And so, I extend a clear invitation to the private sector in the United Republic of Tanzania. Let us partner in this transformation. Let us invest together, build together, grow together, so that the prosperity we create is not divided but shared. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, in the end, the question before us is not whether we are neighbors. It is whether we will choose to act as partners. It is whether we will remain constrained by suspicion or rise together in shared strength.